This week on Vaticano, Pope Francis becomes the first pilgrim to sign up for next year's World Youth Day in Panama. The Colosseum in Rome, together with churches in Syria and Iraq, will be illuminated in red lighting in support of persecuted Christians. Discover with us the ancient tradition of celebrating Ash Wednesday at Santa Sabina Church. For this and all the Pope's recent activities, Vaticano starts now. Before the Angelus prayer, Pope Francis referred to a passage from the Gospel of Mark. The fragment from the Holy Scripture tells us how Jesus healed a man with leprosy.
The
most disturbing fact is that Jesus touches the leper, because this was absolutely forbidden by Mosaic law.
The Holy Father explained that touching a leper would mean to be physically and spiritually infected. But in this case, Jesus infected the leper with his purity and healed him. Pope Francis said that sin, not sickness, makes people unclean. And in each confession, Jesus cleans our soul from sin, just as he cleansed the man with leprosy.
Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen.
After the Angelus prayer, the Holy Father opened online registration for World Youth Day 2019 using a tablet from St. Peter's Square.
Registration opens today for World Youth Day, which will take place in Panama in January 2019. Right now, along with 2 young people, I too will register on the internet.
Adesso mi iscrivo tramite internet.
I am now enrolled as a pilgrim to World Youth Day. We should be prepared.
Pilgrims can register their groups here, just like Pope Francis did. Pope Francis received in audience members of the Congregation of the Stigmatine Fathers. Reflecting on the congregation's name, the Holy Father said that the Lord's stigmata, this is the door from which mercy comes. Saint Gaspar Bertoni founded the Stigmatine Fathers in Verona, Italy in 1816. The principal vocation of the congregation is to assist the Church by being at the service of the bishops, proclaiming the gospel and working in the formation of young people and clergy. This week, the Santa Marta Group held its 5th conference in Rome. This group is working to eradicate human trafficking and modern slavery.
It is my hope that these days of reflection and shared experiences have brought into clearer light the interplay between the global and local aspects of human trafficking. Experience shows that such modern forms of slavery are far more widespread than previously imagined, even to our scandal and shame with the most prosperous of our societies.
The Santa Marta Group was formed from a partnership between the Catholic Bishops' Conference for England and Wales and the Metropolitan Police's Human Trafficking Unit in London in 2014, and it includes international police chiefs and bishops from around the world. The International Labor Organization estimates that 40 million people globally are victims of modern slavery. Pope Francis welcomed the Estonian Prime Minister Jüri Ratas at the Vatican. After a 20-minute private meeting, Pope Francis presented Mr. Ratas with copies of his apostolic exhortations and his message for the 2018 World Day of Peace. He also bestowed a medallion depicting an angel destroying a demon of war. For his part, Mr. Ratas gave the Pope 2 handcrafted silver cups made in Estonia. There have been recent signals that the Pope will visit Estonia and other Baltic countries during the 2nd and 3rd weeks of September this year. There are only approximately 7,000 Catholics in Estonia, one of the smallest communities in Europe. In a private audience in the Vatican, Pope Francis met with the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Our correspondent, ANDREA reveals more details.
So the meeting lasted about 50 minutes. Both of the Pope and the President had an interpreter, so we should think that there were 30 minutes of discussion. It went well as far as we can understand from the releases. The main issues of the meeting were obviously the issue of Jerusalem, and especially of the status quo of Jerusalem that both the Holy See and the Turkey supported, even though there are different reasons behind that. And then even the situation of the Christian minorities in Turkey that is crucial for the Holy See. President Erdogan brought a series of 4 books by the Turkish philosopher Rumi. It's a Sufi philosopher that is a sort of, let's say, Muslim way, Muslim philosophy within the same Islam, although it's dated back a little before. And the President brought to the Pope a ceramic view of the city of Istanbul. The Pope, in his returned the presents, giving the message of the World Day of Peace, that this day was dedicated to migrations, as we know, and a sort of sculpture, an angel that strangles a devil. And he said that this is the angel of peace that, you know, defeats the devil. It's just important that Erdogan came to visit the Pope because he recognized the Holy See as a mediator. Holy See has relations with 183 states in the world. So it's important that in a situation of turmoil and even difficulties, President of Turkey thinks that it's important to go and meet the Pope and go to the Vatican and speak about that.
This week, the Holy See Press Office released the Pope's Lenten message. This year's theme is a quote from the Gospel of Matthew. Because of the increase in iniquity, the love of many will grow cold. One of the speakers, Cardinal Peter TURKSON, who is the head of the Vatican's dicastery for promoting integral human development, says that the Pope wanted to bring our attention to the fact that our faith can't be built on enthusiasm alone.
No, it is this, not to take anything for granted. It's not to take for granted that, you know, because the gospel is preached, people are going to be able to live according to the gospel and do what is right. That may not be taken for granted. You know, the Christian, the invitation to discipleship and wanting to live as disciples, Jesus, has a lot of challenges.
In the Lenten message, the Pope offers solutions for overcoming these challenges and the coldness of hearts. The Holy Father urges taking up this Lenten journey enthusiastically, being sustained by almsgiving, fasting, and prayer. And remember that even if the flame of charity seems to die in our own hearts, we should know that this is never the case in the heart of God. Every day, thousands of people visit the Vatican, and each of these pilgrims has his own story to tell. This group came to Rome from Houston, Texas. Initially, the trip was planned to take place in the autumn of 2017 in order to celebrate the ordination anniversary of Fathers Norbert and James. But things didn't go as planned.
And it was scheduled for September, but Hurricane Harvey came into the Houston area and devastated our parish facilities. We had as much as 4.5 feet in the sanctuary area of the church. Every building was lost on our campus, and many of our parishioners lost their homes as well in the flood.
So the trip was postponed, and the community wrote a letter to the Holy Father asking for his prayers. Imagine their surprise when the Pope answered and invited the community to pray together with him in Rome.
Still in shock and awe, meeting the Pope face to face like this, and went to present him some gifts that we brought from the parish communities. The first gift I presented was a Christmas tree ornament that one of the parishioners made. She took a copy of a picture of our flooded sanctuary and made it into a Christmas ornament on a ceramic disc and put a scripture quote about walking through the waters and trusting in God.
The second gift was a writing pin made from a leg of one of the altar service chairs that was in the flooded sanctuary. The third gift was a rosary. The parishioners call it the Houston Astros Rosary because it matches the colors of the Houston Astros baseball team. Father Norbert says that tradition holds that if the parish sells out of these rosaries on game day, the Astros will win. And indeed, the Astros won the World Series last year. The Holy Father appreciated the rosaries a great deal.
And he just thought that was the funniest thing. He really chuckled along with it and all. And so I said to him, I said, you have to pray for them, for the Astros. And he says, no, pray for me, pray for me. And he said that several times during the time that we had with him.
Father James says that this pilgrimage was designed to be a profound spiritual journey, not just a sightseeing trip.
How does God reveal himself to you in every moment of every day of the pilgrimage? We talk about these pilgrimages as being rolling retreats. So what is the experience of God, not just while we're celebrating Mass, but when we're walking along the street, when you encounter somebody who speaks a different language, no matter what's that experience?
The pilgrimage has already started to bear fruit.
One of our members who has been married 50 years to a Catholic, never been Catholic, announced the other night he wants to become Catholic now. And so it was the power of celebrating the Eucharist in Orvieto, where the Eucharistic miracle took place, or where the corporal is there. And so it truly has just been awe-inspiring.
So this was a great blessing to be able to come here and to just see the continuity of our faith and to have the encouragement and the hope from that. We were in Florence and they pointed out the flood that occurred there and the damage. And that really hit home to me too because of what we have been through in Houston. So it's just knowing the hope and the strength of our Catholic faith that I think helps us a lot. So it's very excited to be here.
The pilgrims promise that when they arrive home, they'll share the greetings and the message of hope from Pope Francis with all other Houstonians. In a few moments, we'll be back with more on Vaticano. More on Vaticano begins now.
In January, the Holy See Mission Geneva organized this interreligious service as part of the celebration of the World Day of Peace. It was a prayer meeting and platform for women and men of different religions and cultures.
The prayer meeting, or service, we say interreligious service that we have in Geneva, is very important for many reasons. The first is Geneva is a city of dialogue. Although socially we are not that very diversified, let's say, but the meaning of the city is incredibly big, incredibly important. So it is somehow institutionally we present here the willingness and the readiness of many to collaborate, to share our idea, our vision of the future, especially our vision of the necessity to protect the peace.
Pope Francis had dedicated this year's message to migrants and refugees. The Grand Rabbi of the Israeli community in Geneva reminded everyone that no one's blood is redder than that of a fellow human being.
So does it matter what religion we belong to in the end?
It's not just a technical question that means it's good for me, good for you, then it's good for everybody. No, it is a vocation. It is the most complex and most structured phenomena of human life. You know, this is why we say in the Catholic Church that even the faith is a gift of God. You cannot have it if you want it. You have to have it as a gift.
Critics argue that it is unwise and ultimately self-defeating to engage in interfaith dialogue without knowing much of anything about the other religion.
Isn't it important to first learn about other religions before engaging in such a dialogue?
The challenge certainly exists. We have to know, but it is in any case, we do not speak at this level about convincing or converting the others. This is a completely different thing that must go on the level of personal consciousness. But here we speak about the function of and consequences that the religious dialogue can have for the society and especially for the peace. Because the biggest problem today is peace. Many others, but peace is certainly central and important.
The head of the Geneva Buddhist Center referred to Buddha, who taught that a person cannot be known through his physical appearance, and that everybody must be given a fair chance to introduce themselves in dialogue with the other.
It is a conviction of the Catholic Church, and especially of papacy. I think this conviction comes out from responsibility for the world, that dialogue among religious leaders, among religions, is a necessity, it's obligatory, it's indispensable. So there is not a possibility that we will face modern life and being active in the modern society without promoting the dialogue among religions and religious leaders.
This evening, everyone was in agreement to pray for refugees, for women and men in search of peace, for world peace and universal fraternity.
Universal fraternity is a category that goes even more than only relations among religions. You know? It's also relations between cultures. It is somehow also, let's say, all the source of the inspiration for the modernity, you know, from the French Revolution and after that. I would say this universal fraternity is an extremely deep and important concept of living together, and I think it must be applied, especially when we talk about the interreligious dialogue.
You know, at the end of the Mass, the priest says, go out and announce or pronounce the good news. That's basically it. Share your faith with others. Right?
Share your faith with others and be capable to accept probably and capable to interact with diversity that you are going to meet when you are in the society.
The interfaith dialogue was motivated by Nostra Aetate, the Second Vatican Council declaration on the relations with non-Christians. The Church rejects nothing of what is true and holy in these religions, and that she has a high regard for their manner of life, conduct, precepts and doctrines.
Persecution of Christians worldwide is on the increase. It's estimated that at least 200 million Christians are persecuted throughout the world because of their faith. To increase global attention towards the fate of persecuted Christians, the papal charity Aid to the Church in Need has illuminated important architectural landmarks in red for the last 4 years. This year, the initiative will be held on Saturday, the 24th of February, and will light up 3 large monuments: the Colosseum in Rome, Italy, the Maronite Cathedral of St. Elia in Aleppo, Syria, and the Church of St. Paul in Mosul, Iraq. Patriarch Luis Rafael Sacco, the head of the Chaldean Catholic Church, said that the timing of the initiative is very significant because it's going to be launched during the Lenten period, a time of penance and almsgiving.
The plan is to be supported, for some delegations, but also in a political level, for the reconciliation among Iraqis now, between Kurds and Arabs, to look for some solution to support the local church, because our Christian praises among a mass of Muslims is very important to witness something different from them.
The Patriarch was in Rome with other Chaldean bishops on a periodic visit to the Holy Father. The meeting lasted for more than an hour and a half and finished with the exchange of gifts. The bishops presented the Pope with Middle Eastern sweets and objects, as well as a photo album showing the churches that have been transformed into refugee shelters. After the meeting, His Beatitude Patriarch Sacco said that this meeting was a source of renewed enthusiasm and strength to pursue their mission. Thanks for watching. Stick around for more on Vaticano. This tradition most likely dates back to the early Christian community, when members used to visit each other from home to home. The tradition evolved so that the Holy Father would celebrate Mass in each part of the city to strengthen the sense of community. It is indeed most probable that the College of Cardinals was formed in this way, the first cardinals being the parish priest of these stational churches. Over the centuries, the tradition was forgotten and discovered once again. The route changed several times, but the Basilica of Santa Sabina on the Aventine Hill has always remained the first station on this route. And indeed, every year Pope Francis celebrates the beginning of Lent here, under these ancient vaults. This church has been a mother church for the Dominican order since its foundation. Our correspondent, Juliet Linley, met with Dominican Father Bonaventure AGBALI to discover more about Ash Wednesday at Santa Sabina.
How do you prepare for the arrival of the Pontiff?
We're always happy, we always feel of joy. It's a privilege for us to receive the Holy Father every Ash Wednesday. But for the liturgical celebration, the Vatican team, the team of the liturgical celebration from the Vatican, are fully in charge of the preparations.
What does it mean for you that the Pope comes here to your church?
For me, it's a great honor, it's a great privilege as a Dominican, personally, because I have been here for a couple of years, and each year I have the opportunity to be that close to the Pope, you know, coming to our house, coming to our church. And this is not just for me personally, but for all Dominicans, both those residing here, those living in Rome, and Dominicans all over the world. We feel highly honored that every year we're able to receive the Holy Father at Santa Sabina.
Tell us a little bit about the symbolism of Ash Wednesday, just a little bit to give an idea.
Ash Wednesday marks the commencement of the season of Lent, which is a period of intense prayer, penance, and works of mercy and charity. It's 40 days of preparing for the celebration of the Paschal Mystery, which is the celebration of our redemption at Easter. So the Holy Father, in his Lenten message for this year, has asked us all to begin this journey with renewed enthusiasm, relying on prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, so that we will renew and inflame the fire of charity within us.
The Basilica of St. Sabina is the oldest extant basilica in Rome that has preserved its original architectural style. Celebrating Ash Wednesday here is a way to connect with the 2,000-year-old tradition of the Catholic Church, hidden here within these walls and columns. This basilica was constructed in 432 on the site of early imperial houses on the property of Christian martyr St. Sabina. This big wooden door goes back to the 5th century. It's made of 18 panels, and each one tells its own story from the Bible. The first panel on the top left is particularly precious, as it contains the earliest depiction of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ in Western art. Entering the basilica, one gets a great sensation of space. Kaleidoscopic light floods through the windows, reflects on the walls, and the starry ceiling, sacred art, and chapels adorn every corner. These superb colonnaded arcades create the perspective of the pathway to the Holy of Holies, the Eucharistic altar. These Corinthian columns used to be the pillars of a previous 2nd century pagan temple, and yet now they support the roof of the house of the living God and are decorated with Eucharistic representations. The apse of the church is crowned by a triumphal arch with images of Jesus and some saints. The fresco depicts the glorified Christ above the river of life. He's surrounded by the apostles, St. Peter and Paul, and other saints such as St. Sabina and St. Serapia. The church itself is an example of the Lenten journey. For hundreds of years, it has been renovated with the objective of preserving the original style. And during Lent, every Christian is also called to be renewed, to be able to appear with their original splendor before the resurrected Christ. Join us next week on Vaticano and learn about sacred art in stained glass. Thanks for watching.